Community Safety and Health Week aims to alert the public to all the potential trouble spots, the home, at work and on the roads. The Newcastle Ambulance Service gave a graphic display of what can happen on our highways. The display ties in with Motorcycle Awareness Month and highlights that the most accident-prone group in the community is the 16 to 25-year-old male. For Australia, the statistics are not good. We boast the third worst safety record per head of population in the Western world. Every day in this country, 2 children die and 85,000 children are injured through accidents. This display, which will continue at Stockland Mall until tomorrow, is designed to educate the public in prevention so that one day they may prevent a disaster within their own home or out in the community.
The previous fastest speed is believed to have been in a dual-seat FA-18 of just over 3 hours. The 2 single-seater Hornets, piloted by the officer commanding Williamtown, Air Commodore Dick Bomble, and United States Marine Corps Exchange Officer Major Lynn Champagne, made the trip from the PSRWAF base near Perth to Williamtown in 2 hours and 58 minutes. The No. 3 Squadron aircraft flew at an average speed of 1,273 kilometres an hour. An Air Force spokesman said there were high winds at the altitude the planes were flying, which would have helped the quick trip home. The 2 aircraft flew to Western Australia last week to attend an air show.
In today's robbery, a couple walked into this branch of the National Australia Bank at about 11:50. The woman slipped out of the bank, leaving her male accomplice armed with a sawn-off shotgun. According to police, the man put an attaché case similar to this one on the counter and produced a plastic Coles bag, which he told one of the tellers to fill with money. Police will not disclose how much money was handed over. The man slipped out of the bank, and despite a widespread police search, the couple have not been seen since.
We have some very firm leads, which unfortunately I'm not at liberty to disclose at the moment, but we do expect an early result.
Is there any link between this robbery and the robbery on Saturday at the Newcastle Building Society?
No, that's it was committed by other offenders.
The 2 people from today's robbery are described as both being well dressed. The woman is about 170 centimetres tall, of thin build with short dark hair. It is believed she was wearing sunglasses and light clothing at the time of the robbery. The man is described as 185 centimetres tall, of olive complexion with dark hair and a dark moustache. He was wearing a white jacket and was carrying a maroon attaché case at the time of the robbery.
Yesterday's robbery at this branch of the National Australia Bank in Hunter Street was the latest in a spate of robberies over the last week. Police say a couple walked into the bank at around 11:50 a.m. The woman slipped out of the bank while the man approached a teller and produced a sawn-off shotgun. According to police, the man placed a briefcase similar to this one on the counter, as well as a plastic Coles bag, which he told the teller to fill with money. The man escaped with a large amount of money, and despite a widespread police search, neither he nor the woman have been seen since.
We have some very firm leads, which unfortunately I'm not at liberty to disclose at the moment, but we do expect an early result.
The man in yesterday's robbery is described as well-dressed, 185 centimetres tall, of olive complexion with dark hair and a dark moustache. He was wearing a white jacket and was carrying a maroon briefcase at the time of the robbery. The woman is described as being 170 centimetres tall, of thin build with short dark hair. At the time of the robbery, she was wearing sunglasses and light-coloured clothing.
Hello everyone, I'm Mark Warren. Well, Noxious Weeds Awareness Week is underway throughout the Valley, and it's aimed at heightening the community's awareness of the problems of noxious weeds. Each year the state government spends a staggering $250 million controlling noxious plants like this alligator weed.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
Organisers were pleased with the turnout at Francis Greenway High School for the Drug Information Night. More than 200 people, many of them teenagers, were on hand to hear Father Arthur Bridge from the Hunter Life Education Centre. Father Bridge said that while much public attention had centred on hard drugs, the problem began with marijuana. He said the drug was increasingly available to adolescents and that 1 in 4 school students have or will smoke the drug. It was statistics like these that led the Beresfield Neighbourhood Watch to organise the Drug Information Night. Officer in charge of Beresfield Police, Sergeant David Ryan, said many parents are worried about the possibility of their children taking drugs.
I'm sure that the parents of the area are concerned about all drugs, but particularly marijuana because of its topical nature. It is a drug that's on everyone's lips, and it is a thing that's concerning them.
Is it hard for parents to recognise when their children may have a drug problem?
Well, I think that we, as parents, and the parents at large, are concerned, but they really don't know the symptoms and what to look for. They can go to their local doctors and be guided, but a lot of the marijuana symptoms are similar to the common cold. That has been my experience.
Across Meg's family doorstep passed some of Australia's most noted characters from the literary and artistic worlds. Today she recollected her more cherished memories of that childhood at the lunchtime meeting.
Well, I suppose he was both a literary character and was the artist Norman Lindsay. He was obviously a painter as well, but he was in some ways like a grandfather, or the best grandfather you could have. And we actually lived in his studio for the first 5 years of my life, and then we spent a lot of time with him in the Blue Mountains at his sort of retreat.
Many of those at the lunch had read Meg's book, Autobiography of My Mother, which she describes as an oral history of her mother's life. She says her parents were fascinating people.
They embarrassed me, my mother, at times because she was eccentric, and I went through a stage of desperately wanting her to be normal and look like everybody else's mother and behave like that. And afterwards, you're just really glad that they were the way they were.
Meg is following to an extent in her parents' footsteps, working as a freelance writer and filmmaker. She's experiencing the more bohemian life of her parents, but within her own generation. She says matching her parents' experiences against her own, she finds that life has changed really very little.
Most of the entrants had arrived at Rutherford by early afternoon today to face the particular eye of the chief scrutineer, Lance Fletcher. All the tigers were manufactured between 1931 and 1946, and it's Lance's job to ensure they haven't been unduly modified.
But it's made to the manufacturer's standard design, that it hasn't been substantially altered into something else, and is not a genuine tiger moth.
Well, how? They'll leave at 1 minute intervals from 8:30 in the morning, racing across Gloucester to Port Macquarie for fuel and lunch. Back via Taree and Tea Gardens, low over Nobbies and then back to Maitland. Sunday is an 8 o'clock start, south to Camden and back via Warnervale and Redhead. The quickest, who doesn't exceed the fuel penalty of 33 litres an hour, will be the winner. Those who fly the Tigers say there's nothing more exhilarating than the open cockpit.
Well, you've
like
come down from
Colseen
Kempsey for the big
Kempsey.
race.
That's
Just
right,
what does it
yeah.
mean to a Tiger owner to compete?
Well, it's a heap of fun. We really enjoy it. I've been in every one every Tiger race that we've had so far, and I think everyone's enjoyed them. You know.
It sounds like the sort of thing where winning's not that important. It's just a case.
No, it's you get a chance to see people that you never see other times. You know, from Victoria and all over the place, and you know, it's just a great little get together, I reckon, and a heap of fun and good run in the old Tiger too. So we really enjoy it.
It took just on 4 hours for the 4 locomotives to haul the giant train over 100 kilometres from the Hunter Valley No. 1 coal mine to the Kooragang coal loader in Newcastle. The 84-wagon giant was double the length of the previous record holder, and on board was 8,400 tonnes of steaming coal bound for export. Today's run was part of assessment trials to see if this size coal train can go into regular service. The SRA hopes the giant trains will reduce transport costs and speed the delivery of coal to the port. Sensitive instruments were also on board today to measure any stresses both the train and tracks underwent during the journey. The result from today's trial will be fully assessed by the SRA, railway unions, coal companies and loading facilities to see if the use of these trains will be feasible. The State Rail Authority says it's pleased with today's test run, so much so that tomorrow the giant train will be making another trip, this time to pick up a load of coal from the Ulan coal mine. And from there, the SRA says it hopes to run the service at least once a week to Newcastle.
The theme for this year's meeting of the Regional Assembly of the ALP was Labour and the future for young Australians. A number of important issues affecting the young were addressed, included in speeches by the State Minister for Health, Peter Anderson, who dealt with the drugs problem, and the Federal Minister for Social Security, Brian Howe, who delivered the keynote address. He spoke at length on unemployment and outlined the way his government will further tackle the problem.
I think it's important that when we talk about the positive nature of unemployment benefit, we don't intend to suggest, there has never been a policy that would suggest we see unemployment benefit as being a substitute for jobs or for training or for education or for a long-term investment in young people.
The main points of the Labor strategy include a commitment to increasing education opportunities for the young, increasing youth housing, endorsing traineeships and continuing unemployment benefits. The Assembly, which comprised ALP members from throughout the Hunter and Central Coast regions, also looked at other current issues, including the debate on the future of Newcastle television. It carried a motion to recommend that the federal government review its aggregation policy. While they backed the idea of another commercial television station in the city, they opposed the government's indicative plan on the grounds that Newcastle should be linked with the North Coast and the New England if it's to be linked at all with other regions. It also recommended that an ABC television crew again be stationed in Newcastle.
Have not been policies which have been
quite considerably.
Officials and dozens of kids representing the 10 clubs in the zone were present to hear the Newcastle Perm's Public Relations Officer Paul Scott announce the $4,000 support for the movement. Newcastle's newly elected Lord Mayor John McNaughton was also on hand to commend the society and to commit the council to assist in any way the junior surf life-saving movement in their efforts to help our kids enjoy their leisure time and to help them train up to make our beaches safe for years to come. Swansea Belmont's Dean Blatchford and Nobby's Rebecca C handled their acceptance speeches in fine style.
For this season, I'd like to thank the Newcastle Permanent Building Society for this generous donation.
Association President Bob Mason was delighted. President Bob Mason.
We like working with the kids, and what we're doing is teaching the kids to become competent swimmers in the surf, and hopefully to carry them onto the senior ranks to become good lifesavers and good citizens of Newcastle.
Just after 6:30 this morning, 3 fire units were called to 9 Francis Street, but could do little to save the house. Police say the family were asleep when the fire started. The 4-year-old son alerted his mother, father and 2 sisters, who escaped in only the night clothes they were wearing. For the Bashford family, the fire destroyed all their personal belongings, including modern kitchen appliances and a new lounge room setting. The family is now staying with relatives. Police say investigations into the cause of the blaze are still taking place, and if it wasn't for the quick actions of the 4-year-old son, the fire could have resulted in a serious tragedy.
The men made their desperate escape between 2 and 3:15 this morning. Tamworth police say they prised the lid off a drain in the cell floor and used the metal ring to dig around a water fountain set into the wall. The stainless steel bubbler measured about 75 centimetres square and left a hole big enough for each man to crawl through into an adjoining room. Escape was then a simple matter of walking out a back door. Police did not hear the men as they worked on the wall fountain.
The officer on duty at the time was a fair distance away from the cells. The cells would probably be 30 metres from the officer who was on duty.
An extensive police search was launched and roadblocks were set up on all roads leading out of Tamworth. 2 men matching their description were sighted at 7:30 this morning, about half a kilometre south of Aberdeen, and police in the area and at Muswellbrook are assisting in the search. 22-year-old Peter Lawrence Blanche was waiting transfer to Maitland Jail to serve 8 years for armed robbery. He's described as being 180 centimetres tall, of fair complexion and medium build, and is heavily tattooed. Police describe him as dangerous. 22-year-old Terence James Smith was due to appear in court this week for sentencing over stealing offences. He is described as 174 centimetres tall, of medium build, has light brown hair and is also heavily tattooed.
The run starts at Nobby's Beach and after 12 relay changes and 65 kilometres ends in the grounds of Tomaree Lodge at Shoal Bay. The relay run is the major fundraising activity for the Newcastle Cystic Fibrosis Association and this year attracted a record field. Cystic fibrosis is one of the most common genetic diseases amongst children, with 1 in 2,000 babies being born with it. Newcastle now has a cystic fibrosis clinic at the Martin Hospital. The money raised from today's run go towards equipping and maintaining it.
The Stockton Rifle Range is a popular target venue for shooters, including those competing in the BHP Mini Palmer competition over the weekend. But the range is one of 6 major rifle ranges in the state that's been set up on Commonwealth Government land. The Army and the Police Department also use the site, but it's the shooting clubs of the region that say they'll suffer the most if the range is closed, and that its loss will affect the sport in the area.
Without a range such as Stockton, for the people in this area and the hunter, it's going to deny many rifle shooters the chance of representing their state or even country in a sport in which Australians happen to win more medals pro rata than in any other team sport in which the country participates in.
The largest building society in the Hunter region, the Newcastle Permanent, is yet to respond to the latest pressures on rates, but it will. Managing Director Frank Wotherspoon said his organisation had a good financial year and can delay the rise, but one will come.
I can say that I do not expect that we would see our interest rates increase during November. I'll go further and say that I've heard today that the increase in interest rates have been spoken of as being as high as 1.5%. I wouldn't expect that ours would be that high. Certainly, I'd also say that we're conscious of the problems faced by the average homeowner in the community. We would be seeking to, if we decide to put interest rates up, increase the interest rate, but not increase the amount of the instalment, say before the end of this financial year.
At the Greater Newcastle Building Society, the decision to increase rates up to the new maximum of 15.5% has already been taken. According to General Manager Bill Prince, the writing was already on the wall when his board met on Tuesday night.
And after a very lengthy deliberation, they found that they had to follow suit with a lot of other societies in the state and increase the borrower's rate by 1%. That doesn't mean that everybody's rate of repayment will go up by 1%. It will be a gradual amount from 0.5% to 1%, depending on what they borrowed.